Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we're talking about my boy, Spider-Man, my favorite hero, and one that I felt personally robbed over this year. As you all know, we've been doing a lot of Spider-Man content here on the channel since No Way Home came out. We did the Raimi Spider-Man video games, we did Web of Shadows, Shattered Dimensions. There are so many Spider-Man games. I played them all. I want to talk about them all, but you know, we love timeliness here on Retro Rebound. We like to synchronize the pop culture movement with the retrospective, and I was looking at these games thinking to myself, when can I talk about them? And I thought, well, Into the Spider-Verse's sequel would be a perfect time to do so. Movie gets delayed to next summer, so we'll see you then. But then, I smelled opportunity. I looked at the game release schedule and saw that today, y'all are going to get your hands on Spider-Man over on PC. This is the Spider-Man game from Insomniac, and I rubbed my hands and went, oh, we got him now. So in today's video, we're going to be reflecting on the Insomniac Spider-Man games, which just did not miss. I've always been a big believer in Insomniac. I loved the Ratchet and Clank games growing up. I loved their focus on gadgetry. And when I played Sunset Overdrive on my Xbox One, I remember saying to myself, this team would be perfect to make the next Spider-Man game. And I was really beating the drum on that because it is a perfect match. Because what does Peter Parker do? Runs on walls a ton, gets around the city in a real stylistic fashion like you did in Sunset Overdrive, but he's also all about the gadgets, a big component of the games that was really severely missing, which Insomniac got right, and they had a pedigree with that thanks to Ratchet and Clank. To me, I was like, it's just right there in their DNA, and lo and behold, they did it, and they did it dang right. So today we're going to be reflecting on not only Spider-Man PS4, but Spider-Man Miles Morales. So if you're new here, you're into retrospectives, whether they be newer games or more often older games, then consider subscribing. We also do a lot of Marvel content here when the time is right, so keep that in mind if you're subbing up. With that, thank you for 50K. We really appreciate that. It's crazy to think about when we started this channel. We're about a month shy of a year ago. How fast it's grown. I feel very thankful for all of you who just sit down and listen to me gab about, games that I'm very passionate about and really nothing more. There's not like this crazy formula to this channel. I look at games that I'm excited about or games I played for the first time. I offer my thoughts on them, and I encourage you to do the same. And it's just amazing the kind of collaboration that we've had here. So again, thank you for listening to me, for offering me your thoughts, and especially your kindness. This channel is wholesome as hell. With that, let's keep that energy up and talk about Spider-Man PS4. So we're gonna do the modern day complete in-box experience, which is a little underwhelming. It's just some slips inside, but you know me, I like to say, here's what you got when you pulled up the shelf, in this case in 2018 and 2020 respectively. So let's start off with Spider-Man Game of the Year Edition. As you can see here in the golden label, it includes Marvel Spider-Man The City That Never Sleeps DLC with additional missions and challenges. Now, it's not on disc, as you'll see here. It arrives in a voucher that has been used, but I wanted to make sure I just at least had the slip there for the sake of clarity. You have a reversible box cover, which is absolutely beautiful. I love the art for this game. It really jumps out to me. And then the back of the box says, "Be Greater, the Spider-Man game we've always wanted and one of the best games on PS4, period." Both sentiments I agree with. And I always like to say this is the Final Fantasy box art treatment. No descriptions of the game, just screenshots. It's like, it's Spider-Man, right? You're going to buy this game. And 20+ million people did, rightfully so. It's an amazing game. We also have Miles Morales here. Now, this is the Ultimate Launch Edition. This is what you would get in 2020 when the game first came out. You'd pay $70 for this version, and as you'll see on the front, it would include Spider-Man Remastered, which we will talk about, trust me. And the back says, "Be greater, be yourself," an important message in this game. Experience the rise of Miles Morales as the new hero masters incredible, explosive new powers to become his own Spider-Man, with content which is locked to this disc, and again includes the remastered Spider-Man. Crack on open the box here. You'll see the slip right here. You'll see the slip for the remaster as well. These codes expire in 2024. I've already redeemed them, so joke's on you, pal. And then I love the disc, especially with the white down here at the bottom, the banner. I think it just matches really well with the Black Spider logo. And then again, the reversible cover art with Miles Morales here. And then kind of a Spider-Verse looking piece of art here. Just incredible art across both games. And for some reason, there we go. The box wasn't cooperating with me. So that's what you'd get complete in box, if you will, for both these games. Now, let's reflect beginning with the original Spider-Man from Insomniac that came out in 2018 and is one of my favorite video games ever. So, as I said, when this game was announced, it was just like, this is perfect. This literally can't go wrong. My only question mark surrounding the Insomniac Spider-Man game was, will they get the story right? And mind you, when we talk about the story here, we're not going to spoil anything at all. No visual spoilers and no audio spoilers. Like, I'm not going to ruin this game for y'all because I know some of you have been waiting. I know 20+ million of you have played it, thanks to the sales charts. We can see that. But I imagine many of you have yet to play it who are on Xbox or on PC, so we're not going to ruin that here. What I'll talk about is really what I think made this story great, which is not necessarily each of its moments, but the way it captured, as I'm sure you've heard before, the human side of Peter Parker, right? We always hear Spider-Man. We always learn about the story of Spider-Man, the amazing villains he fights, but Peter Parker is as important as Spider-Man. And you certainly have moments like, say, Spider-Man 2, where it's not emotional or anything, but you do get to be Peter Parker, right? You walk into the Daily Bugle, you get missions from J. Jonah Jameson, you, for example, talk to Aunt May. You have those moments, but they're very, very brief. I believe in the first Raimi Spider-Man game, you would have a Peter Parker skin at certain points, or you could equip it under the cheat section. Something in my brain is telling me that was a thing, because I remember the portrait he had. He looked really dorky. Anyway, my point being is that you never really got a chance to be Peter Parker, and I felt like that would have been the extension to the player that we needed to understand him more than just being this badass superhero doing crazy flips around the city and, you know, being a smart mouth while he's doing all that. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, they did just that, right? So you have Peter Parker, you have his Aunt May, and they are in the city of New York as they are interacting with what is more of a charity organization that kind of flips on its head a little bit more. And at the center of this story, as I'm sure you've already seen in the various trailers that have been out and the marketing that's been out for this game, is that Mr. Negative is the main villain for this game. And I love the main villain because, as a comic book fan, to me personally, you know, we've seen a lot of the stories with Venom, Sandman, Green Goblin, and those are amazing. And there's a reason why people really loved, for example, No Way Home, just the presence of those villains. They are some of the most important Spider-Man villains, but I loved having a new one there. As I get older, I appreciate the experimentation that we're starting to see more and more in these big pop culture moments, where it used to be like, get the biggest heroes imaginable because it's too risky to put someone else in who's lesser known of a name. But in this game, they go for Mr. Negative, and I think they did something pretty special with him. I thought the interaction with him and Peter was really cool because a lot of it was like him talking about Spider-Man while Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but he doesn't know that. And I just love that because it's a game that allows you to get closer to the villain in a natural way, to get to know them more, understand their motivations properly, without forcing encounters that would only go haywire if he saw Spider-Man. So I think that's one of the strengths of the game 100% is the storytelling. The storytelling here is great. It's emotional. It's captured really well. I remember the ending for this game. I feel like I say this a lot on Retro Rebound, but I guess it makes sense because we talk about games I exclusively love here at this point, unless it's a game I'm playing for the first time that I end up maybe not liking. But for the most part, I select things I really like, and this was a game that did move me to tears at the end. I thought it was fantastic. Now, granted, like, you can see the shirt. You know, this is a Spider-Man PS4 shirt, by the way, given the white spider, but I grew up on this series. I'm sure many of you did as well. To me, as a New Yorker, growing up, having this incredible wall-crawling hero figure that represented everything I wanted to be was just nothing short of awe-inspiring. And I still do have every action figure growing up in the Raimi era. I have all the games, as many of you know, and I just connected very deeply with this character. So to see a really humanized version of the Peter Parker I loved was incredible. And then it was like this moment of just pure euphoria when they cast Yuri Lowenthal, literally my favorite voice actor of all time, as Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man.
I think Yuri is the top talent in the industry, personally. Like, I love his voice. There's no one who has a voice like Yuri. If you don't know who he does, you could, for example, pick out a small moment in Fallout New Vegas where it's the guy who won the lottery. There's also, of course, Sasuke Uchiha. I love him as Sasuke. I just think Sasuke is like the ultimate edgy, badass anime character. But it just shows the range Yuri has to be this emotional Spider-Man figure. And it's the effort they went into with the voice capture as well. When you're doing conversations in the open world, let's say you're web swinging, they recorded 2 audio lines for those open world sections, which I think is an incredible level of detail, because some of them will be like Yuri struggling because he's web swinging, so he's exerting effort. So there will be lines recorded when he's on the move and lines recorded when he's standing still.
Looks like I got some free time. Maybe now's a good time to look into that mask. Looks like I got some free time. Maybe now's a good time to look into that mask.
And I know that sounds obvious, but it's this smooth transition between 2 audio tracks that is like downright fascinating to me. And they didn't really have to do, but they did it anyway. And that's, again, what I love about this game is the small details. With that, I've said enough about the story and the performances. I just think it really elevates what this game is, because the gameplay, you've seen this template before. I think because of the gameplay elements, it makes it okay. But yeah, you've seen this open world with checklist objectives in the past. It is very much here and present. Yes, it even has towers that decorate your map with icons. It is not reinventing the open world formula. I think the reason people allow it, or at least I did, is because it's incredibly fun and it's very refreshing to play when you're engaging with the content. But yes, the way you access the content is what you've seen in every open world game before. That aside, though, oh my gosh, again, remember what I said with gadgetry, but also what they got right here, and this was kind of like a hope and a prayer, like please include this too, was free flow combat. For years and years and years, we have seen developer after developer since the Arkham Asylum game release try to get free flow combat. We've seen Captain America try to do it. We've seen Amazing Spider-Man try to do it. And everyone kinda, sorta, loosely gets it, but no one has the flow, the rhythm, the style, and the brutality, as well as the gadgetry of the Batman Arkham games. But this game right here got it. Oh, did it ever get it? That was what was amazing to me as well. I went, wow, they figured it out. They cracked the code. And so, yes, when you're engaging with a bunch of enemies, there's enough types to diversify how you're going to approach them. The gadgets are there. Like I talked about, that Ratchet and Clank synergy is here. So you're going to be throwing all manner of doodads at your enemies, and how they interact with them is so much fun. That's the other thing, is the interactivity in this game. Like, one thing I love doing, if they were close enough to the wall and I really webbed them up, like they would stick to the wall and that would just end them right there. Like, it didn't matter what their health was at. They were stuck. I love also little details, like when you kick someone off the roof, it's like, well, Spider-Man can't kill them. And you'll see like Spider-Man attach a little device to their chest that'll shoot out a web. And sometimes you'll see the web fire out, attach to the wall, and bring them in. I'm just like, wow, like they've really gone the extra like to make sure like Spider-Man's no killer. Like, he's stylish and he is calculated when he is on the job. So the game lets you really not even have to suspend your disbelief. Like, it feels like you are really Spider-Man taking care of the city. So that free flow combat, that gadgetry, my oh my, does it feel good. And I think it's because now you have this mechanic that lets you reach enemies that are very far from you, and so they get to diversify the enemy types you're going to fight. One thing that Spider-Man weirdly did in older games like The Amazing Spider-Man is people would have guns, but they'd be like right there next to you waiting to shoot you, and I didn't really get that. Now, because of when you press triangle, you'll do a web attack and you will whip the life out of someone from 5 miles away and pull yourself to them, or if you hold triangle, you'll pull them to you. It reminds me of, and a lot of people aren't going to like this comparison, but I don't care. I love this game. It reminds me of how I felt about DMC Devil May Cry. Yes, the 2012 Devil May Cry game, where you had the angel side, you had the devil side. The angel, I think it was the angel side would pull you to them, whereas the axe that we used for the devil side would pull the enemy to you. And it just felt like you had an option for every encounter, for every enemy type. And this game has a suit system that you can build on top of that. Every suit has levels and perks attached to it, so you can run around with all manner of comic book throwbacks. It's incredible. And they finally, after a while, added the Raimi Spider-Man suit, so you can even play as that, which is just like... That's all I can say. Thank you, gaming gods. This game is unreal, and it deserves all of its praise. It is truly the best Spider-Man game on the market. And that's not a hot take, but I grew up loving Spider-Man games, and it feels so good to have a game where now we can say, this is the bar. It's no longer Spider-Man 2, which I love, but I don't think many people have gone back to, because when you go back to it, it's got its charm, but it is not aged that well. This is the bar that needs to be passed, in my opinion. Then they remastered it. I loved how the original Peter Parker looked, but I'm sorry, I can't sit here and talk about the Insomniac games with a straight face without talking about what they did to my boy Peter Parker. I don't want to hear any excuses. Whatever happened, you gotta undo it. Because I remember when I was playing, we'll talk about it in a sec, Miles Morales, in this year actually, I just played it for the first time. When I was playing that, and I saw that Peter Parker at the beginning of the game because I forgot they changed his face. And I saw it and I went, good grief, what happened here? Why did they do this? It looks so wrong for the voice they picked. Like, they modeled the character that was Peter Parker, the original one, around Yuri's voice. And that kind of slight raspiness worked very well for the face that he had. But now it's this fake Tom Holland look, and you've got Yuri's voice. It's just like, it reminds me of like the Fun for Kids dubs, or whatever the hell they called them, with Dragon Ball, and just some of the really bad dubs we got growing up with anime. And it just got that energy now. I'm just like, what is going on here? So I'm not about it. I pray to the almighty gamer gods that they figure out something here and just go, yeah, you're right, we're gonna undo this, because I don't need this to be anywhere remotely close to Tom Holland. I think they said when they remastered it was a way for them to take advantage of the technology. It looks worse. Sorry. You can tell me all day till you're blue in the face. The tech, though, the lighting, the reflections, you can see his pores. Remake the model from the PS4 version. That's all I can really say to you, because, my God, this is a travesty. Okay, I've let out my one batch of negativity here. Let's talk about Miles Morales. So like I said, I played this for the first time this year, like about a month ago actually, because I've been playing a ton of JRPGs, so I thought, hey, I kind of need to break this up a little bit. I should probably switch it up and play this game I bought at the launch of the PS5. And that's weird for me, right? Like, I love Spider-Man. I'm always all over Spider-Man stuff. There was no excuse on why I took so long for this. I think I thought it was much longer than it actually was. So when I played it and beat it in 5 hours, my oh my was I surprised, and I went, okay, I can just explore the world. I have some Puerto Rican friends, and the way they really felt well represented with the culture that was on display here in Miles Morales, how it didn't feel like pandery, how it felt really authentic, it felt genuine. That stuff is so important, right? No one ever complains about representation, but they want to be fairly represented in a way that doesn't feel like it's just shoehorned in there for like social points. And I think Insomniac really hit the nail on the head here. The conversations, the family vibes. I really, really appreciated the lengths they went to, and I can't even act like I'm a part of that culture, but I've seen people affected by this game, and the way they nailed Harlem, I mean, it's just fantastic from top to bottom on just a cultural standpoint. Like, I just need to shout that out first and foremost, because that's the thing that really stood out to me. I've seen a lot of people really drawn close to Miles Morales just on a cultural front. Completely makes sense to me. Not only that, but Miles Morales is a character, someone you're introduced to in Spider-Man PS4. You see him a lot throughout the game. You even get to play as him and sometimes. And now you get to really live the Spider-Man life with him. And I gotta say, this was one that I wish they kept in the oven a bit longer, because I feel like Miles deserved a longer story. I think it's because now we know in Spider-Man 2 we see Miles Morales and Spider-Man fighting together as a team, and that'll likely be a huge component of that game. And you don't want it to just be like, oh, by the way, Miles Morales is really strong now. Like, you have to have this backdrop, if you will, that says, yes, Miles Morales had this coming-of-age tale, and this game has some really high highs. I feel, again, the emotions there. I love the acting, by the way. The actor that they picked for Miles Morales, perfection. The casting for both Spider-Men has been fantastic. Cannot say enough good things about it. Just the kind of nervous quips, the slight nerdiness to Miles Morales. It is beautiful. Cannot say enough good things about the casting here. The acting is phenomenal. All that's consistent. I just wish Miles had more time to develop connections to certain characters in this game, because it does have some surprising twists and turns, but I feel like they could have had more emotional punch come the end of the game if, again, there was more time in the oven, because this game really surprised me with its length. It is short. Now, there is tons of stuff to do in the open world where you can spend, 15 more hours doing all that stuff, but for me, since Elden Ring, open world games have to be super unique. Not completely reinvent the formula every time, but since Elden Ring, I just feel like the checklist formula, I was already tired of it, and it just kind of put the nail in the coffin for me. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of over this now. Okay. So I got to say, I didn't really dive too deeply into the open world content, but what I have to say I did love about Miles Morales is the snow. Oh my God. I am such a sucker for snow. I love to see snow in my video games. I love to see snow in general in real life. Although, as I get older, you drive yourself places. The snow can be kind of annoying, as well as the cold. But anyway, that's adulting for you. That aside, there is a coziness to Miles Morales, and especially some of the hip-hop tunes that they got in the background. Again, that cultural representation. I mean, it's a vibe, man. This game is a literal vibe. Like, when I was just web swinging down the street, it's like a beautiful, it's a painting in motion. It looks incredible. That's something I didn't talk about Spider-Man PS4 as well, but both these games look amazing. They really do, right? Like, when you look at New York City in most older games, because it's, for many people from the outside looking in, such a samey looking city outside of a couple of parts of districts, they kind of don't go all out with the decorating. That's why New York City was such a common place to see games set, because it's like you can just literally paintbrush buildings all over the map and be like, okay, that's our game. Think of like Prototype, right? Like, clearly New York City, and it's just all of the same buildings everywhere. But here with Spider-Man, they really had a ton of distinct districts, a lot of life on the streets, people interacting, a lot of Easter eggs too. Just a very, again, special set of video games here. So I can't say enough amazing things about these games. If it's your first time playing through Spider-Man over on PC, have a blast. It's one of my favorite games ever made. I'm so happy it exists because, again, I think growing up of how many amazing Spider-Man games we've been given and how this is like the magnum opus to me. Like, I really think Spider-Man PS4 is as close as you can get to a perfect comic book video game, next to, of course, the Arkham games. Like, it's on that level, like that SSS tier level. So enjoy it if it's your first time. If it's not, might be time for a playthrough. Again, I just played this for the first time, not a long adventure, so it's a perfect time with, the gaming season sort of ebbing and flowing with all these delays and not much coming out. Now's a great time to try out Miles Morales if you have yet to. Very short game, and you can indulge in the open world content as much as you want. But otherwise, just fantastic video games that I wanted to share some love for. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of Insomniac's Spider-Man video games? Fire away in the comments down below. And with that, I will see all of you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.